and welcome to our live stream. We are heading in the file with Yannis Ozelins to talk about becoming a better presenter by explaining ideas visually. I'm Katie Chambers. I am an advocate here at Figma, and I am helping teams all over communicate more visually and become better presenters using Figma slides. And I had the great joy of taking Yannis's Explaining Ideas Visually course a few years ago, and it transformed the way that I thought about communicating and representing my ideas in a more visual format. So I was thrilled when Yannis agreed to join me on stage here and share some of these learnings with you all and talking about how you can become a better presenter with Figma slides. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Yannis and he will get us kicked off with our content today. Thank you so much for
Cool.
being here, Yannis.
Thank you, Katie. All right, let's go. I will ask everyone to add some stuff in the chat again. Am I the only one who faced this? Or there are more people in the group, my people, who struggle with stuff like this? Can you throw in the chat like, hell yeah, yes, or no? So we just know, so I know, is there my people here? What is flying in, Katie? Do we have a lot of yeses or a lot of?
So lots of yeses. We have 100. We have thumbs up. We have definitely lots of yeses with multiple exclamation points. Definitely your people here, Yannis.
Awesome. All right, let's dive in. Presentations given each day, there's a lot of presentations that people give each day, and I think like actually active listeners usually is like a super tiny bit. I've actually seen that some people fall asleep during presentations, and of course the vast majority is half listening and waiting for it to end. I hope you are not one of them. And I think the reason for that usually is because presentations tend to have like tons of bullet points, bunch of text. You just start the presentation, fly through 999 bullet points, presentation ends, and that's that. And I think there's a better way by using and explaining a lot of those ideas which you are trying to convey in your presentations through visuals. And I hope by end of this workshop, you will be in a place where the presentations you give, you have tons of active listeners, and there's maybe a tiny bit who don't pay attention that much, even if you are not that great of a storyteller or whatever, like visuals can really make a difference. So a little bit about me. My name is Yannis Ozelins. I started to create visuals back in 2020. My work usually reaches a couple of million people every single month. And fun fact, I'm actually not a designer. I learned this stuff myself, and you're fully capable of doing it as well. And I will show you exactly that today, both how to come up with these concepts, which is the most important part, and also how to do visuals as well. Yeah, and all this journey have led me to work with some really nice people like Dharmesh Shan from HubSpot and Ana Lorena Fabrega. I create books for a couple of people. I've worked with Naval Ravikant, Stephen Bartlett, and a couple of others more. And I teach this in my course as well. Thus far, I've taught more than 700 people. But okay, enough about me. That's just a short intro that you know that I know what I'm talking about here. Let's dive in. The agenda, like first, we will go through 4 real-life examples of how visuals can be used in presentations. It's more about like corporate presentations because that's usually where we do things and share the most presentations. And I will just create some real-life examples how we could use them in some parts of the presentations. Of course, I will not explain how to create like a whole presentation, but some bits of those presentations or openers, I will share you how to do it better. We will go through some examples. And then next, I will teach you the explain ideas visually process while going through example 1. Everything will be through examples. We will learn the whole process by slowly going through example 1. Then we will go through example 2 in a bit different way, because I know some people just learn a bit differently. For somebody works this, for somebody works that. That's why I will mix it up and approach this in various different ways. As well, for the example 3, we will do it again. We'll just run through the process, but in just a bit different manner. So most of you have, I don't know, some takeaways, at least in one of those things. Then we'll move to Q&A. And example 4, you will be able to watch by going to ozo.art/Figma. You can go there and watch in Loom how I create it live. It's like I actually created that visual while recording. I didn't prepare anything. I didn't have any thoughts about what I will make. So you really can get into my mind, like how I am approaching this, how I am visualizing this plus I share how I do this in Figma slides, exactly which buttons I push, why I push them, etc. So you like can really take time and understand that. All right. Now, imagine you are doing a project retrospective presentation to share what went well and what didn't. You're in a company and you're trying to do this. So how we could potentially open up this presentation. Here's something I come up with after going through my process. Hey team, awesome, we finished the project and we had some mistakes and we had some successes. Luckily, we had more successes than the mistakes. And today's presentation is to take away 2 things we should stop doing. We did 2 things that were not really well, so we will try to avoid those. But there are actually 16 things that we should continue doing because we did those really well. So this probably is a more compelling way how to open this type of presentation instead of just sharing a couple of bullet points. Hey team, let's review how we did in our project. Yeah, but everybody sits and yawns, etc. This is more compelling way how to do it. All right, next example. Now imagine you are building a brand new product and you want to get your stakeholders excited about this. So I think this could also be the case for Figma before they launch slides. It's like Figma, like mostly for designers or whatever. Hey guys, this is the size of our market. And it's not like it's small, it's decently big. But we are creating something new and expanding on the market. And after we launch this Project X Figma slides, our market, after we launch this, tremendously expands. So there's massive potential, etc. Again, nice way how to open a presentation if your topic is this. And now I just want to share for those who think, oh man, can I design this? Can we make this pretty? Can I make this ugly or whatever? There's various different ways how to visualize this. And I'll show you right now just by flipping through some examples with the same concept. So maybe you love black and white, so you like rounded stuff and you want to make it more simple like this, this is another way how you can illustrate exactly the same concept. 2 circles, 1 arrow, a little bit of text, a lot of meaning in the message, but like everyone who knows super basic stuff about computers can design this. There's no problem to do it. Next, size of our market today. Yeah, we have some money, but we are launching this new product and there's like insane amount of money, insane potential, etc. Again, like a better way how to open this. Of course, maybe you just sketch on pen and paper and that's absolutely fine. Or in some SketchUp, do it with Apple Pencil or whatever. That works as well. And maybe you sketch something like this on paper and then you can pass on to a fancy designer who can make it like pretty for you. This is just my style. I designed it in my fancy style that I use on social media as well. How we are on the timing? How much time has passed?
We're doing great. We're about 10 minutes.
We're doing great.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, now let's move to the third example. Now imagine you must inform your team about several risks in this that the security team has identified. Few are critical, and the team you need to present that hates when their time is wasted. They hate like meetings and insignificant stuff, etc. So how we could potentially approach a presentation like this to get those people involved and do what we have to do. So here's something I came up with. Hey team, security team has identified 10 risks, but actually 7 of them is not worth your attention. They are insignificant, so we'll not waste your time about them. But 3 of them can put us out of business. So I really need for you to pay attention, and we will go through these 3 risks, etc. Again, by just these 3 slides, we have acknowledged people's feelings that they don't want their time to be wasted. So we established that, hey, we had 10 risks, but we will focus only on 3 who can put us out of business. I respect your attention, but we really need to do these 3. Forget about those 7. Again, like a nice way how to open such presentation by using tremendously simple visuals. All right, 4th example. Now imagine customer complaints have increased. You need to inform stakeholders and get to the bottom of this. This is actually the concept which I did live that you can watch on that ozo.art/Figma. And here's what I made. So 6 months ago, 10% of customer complaints. Present moment, 35% of customer complaints. What have happened? What's going on? We very clearly illustrate the data. We illustrate the problem, what is going on, and there's a clear question what we want to figure out in this meeting. And again, we can illustrate this in super basic style like I've done here, or we can do it in a super fancy style, which is just my style, and I did it from scratch in a couple of minutes directly in Figma slides. You can check it out on ozo.art/Figma. Okay, how do we come up with this stuff? Let's get to the process. Let's get to the very nitty-gritty details of this thing. So yeah, process also, again, ozo.art/Figma. You can also get there the process checklist, like I explain ideas visually, cheat sheet. I'm saying this because I don't want you to take notes or whatever. Just pay attention to what I'm saying and on all the slides, etc., and know that you can get like all the notes and stuff and later down the line and just download them. So no need to do that. Okay, process overview. First thing is we have idea, but we will not talk about this because you have ideas, you have presentations given, you have presentations to give, you have ideas, you know what you want to communicate. So we will not talk about that. And first part in our process is generating thought elements. We will talk more about this throughout example. And then we move forward to generating visual elements. And that's when usually the concept brainstorm starts. So basically we have our idea and then we generate more dots. You know, I think Steve Jobs had this fancy quote of like, you can only connect the dots looking backward instead of forward. And that's very much is how creativity works. We just need to connect things. So now we are generating more thought elements, more visual elements, and then we connect them, mix and match them, do our concept brainstorm. And at the very end, we have like our master checklist where we filter, we understand our values, our things, how we want our visuals to look, etc. So there are just some questions that we go through and ensure our visuals meet them. And then we move on to the final design. We will not talk about that as well because these visuals are super simple and you can watch live how I do it in the link. All right, but honestly, the reality of this, it's always nice that we have this fancy process, step 1, steps 2, step 3, but it's not really how it happens. Main thing is that you go through these 3 middle elements, generate thought elements, generate visual elements, and follow the master checklist, but you will just bounce around. You do this, you generate some thought elements. While you generate some thought elements, you will come up with some visuals and start to sketch some stuff. Maybe you get super excited about the and you already move to the final design and then just polish it from there. So the process is all over the place, but it's just a useful framework to have. All right, let's dive in. So generating thought elements, there's a bunch of questions we need to answer there. What people feel, think, say. So we think about our idea and then we think about, okay, what people might think, feel, what are some hidden truths around this idea? What are some relatable moments? And if we go to our first visual, our prompt, you are doing a project retrospective presentation to share what went well and what didn't. So what we could come up here if we ask ourselves question, what people feel, think, say. People might think, I wonder how we did. I hope they praise me. I hope they don't blame me. Maybe somebody did something bad. What we did right, wrong, that could be a question people have. It was a hard project. Yeah, maybe. Those could be some thought elements I come up with by asking this question. Okay, I hated, love this project. That could be as well what people think. And then if we look at our finalized concept, which we made, we can see that did we fail? By illustrating this mistakes, successes, and that project circle, we illustrate like overall the project was successful, more successes than failures. So we have that question have inspired this concept in some sense. And then I wonder how we did, what we did right, wrong. This is another way how we amplify this idea and bring these 2 questions in here. And those other things which we brainstorm in our session, those are not bad. We are not using them right now, but and they can help to come up with more concepts later down the line. So they are really useful. It's just not something that we use here. So next thing, what data we have here? Results, timeline, budget, global statistics, whatever. It was whatever our 34th project took 45 days, 8 people worked on it. We pushed 60 updates. We made 2 mistakes. We did 6 things really well. That could be something that in this brainstorm you actually come up with. But in reality, when you think about this, you probably will be just writing this down on some random notes or draw down on sticky notes. That on sticky notes actually is a really good idea because then you can really like move around those things and then make sense if you have the opportunity to use like a whiteboard or something like that. And again, for this, we did 6 things really well. We made 2 big mistakes. That is how these thought elements have influenced this particular visual. Moving on to next thing, what comparisons we can create? Super powerful question. Like comparisons are always very easy to create and they are very powerful. We love comparisons. And there's like now, later, expectations, reality, it's basic stuff. So for us, it could be before, after project, wins, losses, what we did good, what we did bad, progress in first half versus second half of the project, expectations, reality, project highs, lows, all valid comparisons and interesting stuff that people might find out. And again, we will not use all of them in this particular visual. But later, if you create this type of concept, it might help to come up with more concepts further down the line in your presentation. So again, wins, losses, did good, did bad, kind of mistakes, successes, answer that. The other stuff was discarded. Is there advice or takeaway? Dude, this was bad. This didn't work. And you just probably come up with just takeaways. Okay, what are the project takeaways? And usually it is like, we did a bunch of stuff good, bunch of stuff bad. And here's just how it reflects in our visual. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, so we have a quick question before we move
sure.
on. For that generate thought elements, seems like there's a lot of excitement around the concept of starting with think, feel, say, and also the whole process. The question is, are you doing this as a solo exercise or are you doing this with other people?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I do it personally alone, but you can do it with other ideas come from everywhere. And the main general concept for you here is to just come up with more dots. You need more of these thought elements. Now we will come up with more visual elements, and then we just brainstorm, we mix and match them and try to make sense. And that's how and then we make something usually super complicated and messy. And then through our master checklist, we digest it down. We know what is important for these types of visuals, and we get to a solid concept. And you always keep in mind, you need your objective. What is the objective here? What I want my audience to feel, what I want those people in the audience like think or feel or understand, etc. So, okay, I will move on, more or less, I guess, answered. Generate visual elements. Okay, there is paint the scene, visualize context. I will illustrate this with a couple of my examples, and then we will move on to our current example, which we are doing about the project takeaways. So paint the scene, visualize context. Here, for example, you can see I have used like metaphor in some sense as well, but on the left side with the calendar, that is one way how you paint the scene, how you visualize context. The idea is to illustrate a bit like, hey, we don't have time, and you put this in a calendar like busy. That is an interesting way how you can paint the scene, visualize context. You think about your idea and then, okay, how I could visualize the context, how I can usually UX elements really help here. You can illustrate calendars and stuff like that. Another example is to think about more abstract. Here, a big part of the idea is these buckets: learning, thinking, doing. And that's how I have painted the scene here. Hey, the core idea is about learning, thinking, doing. So I created these buckets and then just illustrating with line the whole idea that I have done here. All right, classic elements, geometric abstractions. This is just the basic stuff: par charts, bar charts, Venn diagrams, trends go up, all that sort of stuff, which you can find on all the like tools. And I think Figma slides have now that by default in a lot of templates, and I'm sure it will just grow. So that's something that we have. And of course, think about geometric abstractions as well when you just do random stuff with lines and stuff like I have done here. Just created like these 4 parts. What matters most is what we do rather than what we say, think, and believe. All things important, the doing part most important. And I have used here absolutely like abstract things, just a random blob and divided page in 4 parts. And when you have those thought elements, because imagine when I'm brainstorming this idea, oh yeah, we say things, we do things, we think, we believe, but the most important thing is that what matters, and what from these matter most. And then I'm brainstorming this and I have my sticky notes or whatever, and you just randomly go on a whiteboard or on a pen and paper and start to draw lines and sketch things, and something will click, just do random things and then pay attention. Does it make sense or not? All right, create characters. Currently in my visuals, I do that very rarely. And of course, it's a bit harder. Like back in the days when I started, I created this character called Perfectionist Monster. So here's just one example of like you start a new idea and then there's launch day and like your Perfectionist Monster, you want to make things perfect as the deadline approaches. So it grows. But for this, I would really recommend you to go and listen to TED Talk by Tim Urban about procrastination. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this presentation, but it's just a master class for this type of using characters in your presentations. He's just a genius, and he draws like a 6-year-old, so you might feel some encouragement that you can do it as well. Finding metaphors. Slice your goals as you do with bread. Nice metaphor. I found some similarities and just visualized it. Awesome. Here again, Swiss Army knife, like a very used thing for metaphors. I was just thinking, okay, Swiss Army knife, what I could come up with content here. Oh, I'm now this creator guy, and what I understand, I'm like all the roles, I don't have any employees. I'm like everybody. So it's like just a fun way how to illustrate that. And that's how you think about metaphors. But metaphors in general will be harder to do. I think it requires more thought, and it's a bit harder to do them instead of all these like geometric abstractions types of things. All right, another one. Meditation, mental clutter, lovely. And how I came up with this idea, by the way, is a couple of years ago, I was like listening book to my child, and there was like a similar drum roller in the book, and I was starting to create these visuals, and I'm always like seeking for inspiration. I was like, this could be something. And yeah, that's what I made. Love it. Okay, so our example, now we are painting the scene, visualizing context. Put project on a timeline, put it on a calendar. Those are types of not questions, but answers you could come up with. Okay, paint the scene, what I can do here. I have my project, and you're now looking at your old thought elements and think about your core idea as well. And you think, okay, I could put project on a timeline, I could put project in a calendar, and then you start to sketch some stuff. And these are some type of things you can up with. You have calendar, you have timeline. There's some good, bad stuff. I don't know, maybe something potential. That's something I actually do in my notes. Then you have classic elements and geometric abstractions. You start to think, okay, bar charts, timeline, bar charts, funnels, Venn diagrams, processes, and there are some stuff that I come up with, and there are some interesting things. Then create character. Okay, maybe there was some sort of project devil when we can illustrate a project devil, and maybe it will be an object that I will use throughout my presentation. And finding metaphors, I don't know, maybe there could be some turtle versus bunny. We were slow at the beginning, or I don't know, but that's how you think, but it's not concept we use right now. And then there's like overwhelmed with calm brain. All right. And I think these would be my favorites from this brainstorm that I've done here. There is start, there is end. Maybe the start was slow and then it was good. On pie chart, you could illustrate like, hey, during this project, we spend this amount of time on meetings, this amount of time on development and whatever. Then let's just take this one by one. We discussed this one. This one was our winner. How it felt, how I wish it would go. When we talk about projects, there's usually these types of, hey, expectations versus reality, that we expected that things will go smooth and up and to the right, but actually it was super messy. Maybe there was some good potential there. Again, this pie chart could be interesting, that we just share some data, but I don't know, doesn't seem to significant like what really we are communicating here, but potentially could be something later down the line when we introduce the general concept and just talk about the presentation. Comparison in terms of process, how we did, how we should do, that could be actually good. We did this and that, and maybe there are some bad parts of it. And then this is how we should do. We should do this and that. And here we made that mistake, but instead we should do that. So that potentially could be something as well. Okay. That was our generating visual elements type of part of this process. So now master checklist. Katie, how we are on the time? Are we good?
We're doing great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 30 minutes. It's really good. I think we will manage to go through all of the examples and have some time for Q&A. Perfect. Okay, master checklist. One idea per visual. When you ask this question, you usually think about, is it too complex? If it is, break it down. Does it amplify the idea? This is something where you can very plainly illustrate data, but it will be just like, okay, yeah, fine. I see there was whatever, this amount of issues, that amount of issues, but what are you really saying here? It's just like a bar chart with data. Does it amplify the idea? Question really helps here to figure out, okay, what we can do here, what type of action maybe we can poke in here, or some takeaway or something like that. Does it flow? Can people observe the visual with delight and ease? You usually, when you see things and it's like complex, or when you show it to your friends or coworkers and they are like, I'm not sure, what do you mean here? That's when the visual doesn't flow. And again, remember, we read from left to from top to bottom, most of the people. That's something that applies for visuals as well. And is it clear? Yeah, that's just, are you communicating what you want to communicate? I'm usually, with a lot of my visuals, I just ask my wife or friends like, hey, do you get this? And the only thing, I don't care if they think the idea is good or bad, but I'm like, can they observe the idea in a couple of seconds and understand, oh yeah, I understand what you mean. So that's a good thing. And we had this, like we did our brainstorm. We took this concept, failure, successes project. Okay, cool. This is a start. awesome. We made it fancy. This looks great. It seems like it's one idea per visual. A bad example would be like where we start to put a lot of things here and it's okay, what is going on here? I am confused. This is bad. This is just too much is going on here. We don't want that. Now we move on to the second point. Does it amplify the idea? Lacks amplification and punch. Here again, just mistakes, successes, finished project. It's good. It's awesome. But we have more insights. We have more data that we can amplify the idea with these two things that you already know we did. And yes, here we go. Looks awesome. Does it flow? Feels all right. A bad example would be here. If we switch this around and just now it starts to break your brain. Okay, successes finished. Why mistakes are in front? It feels weird. And the flow is wrong for the takeaways. I'm using like a capital letter at the bottom. So all these small details matter. You want to make sure from top to bottom, all that matters. Is it clear? Yeah, feels good. Coworker thinks and say it's clear as well. Good. Move on to the production. And that's that. No, here's an example of if it wouldn't be clear. We have finished project and that's clear. You are presenting it to a team who have finished a project and you know probably about which project you're talking about. But if you say here something like what we did, and then it's okay, what we did yesterday, what we did last month, what we ate for lunch, what are you talking about here? Be specific. Finished project, the stuff we finished, or project X, whatever it was. So be specific. All these wordings and little things matter in your process. All right, good. Let's go through example 2 in a bit different way. So what people think, feel, say. Let's remind me about the prompt. You are building a brand new product and you want to get your stakeholders excited about it. You now do your generating thought elements brainstorm, what people think, feel, say. Why are we doing this? How much money we'll make? What is this product? How likely it will fail? Those could be potential things you come up with. And then now, instead of moving on to generating next thought elements, let's go and directly try to come up with, we know all the generate visual elements parts. Let's just try to come up with several of them. So why we are doing this, maybe there is some reason, could be grow, moving on up and to the right, that could be something that you quickly sketch, what is this product that could trigger, okay, let's draw a box, put a question mark inside product, maybe that leads somewhere. How likely it is that it will fail. Maybe there's a comparison, odds of this going up, odds of this going down. Next thought elements question, what data we have here, market size, how long this will take, like resource requirements, potential revenue, expenses, etc. And again, what we can come up with, okay, currently maybe we have small market, but we are going into a big market. Here's a timeline. We started and it's unknown how much it will take. Then there's like another comparison, how much we have, how much we need. That could be about resources, how we can visualize how much it takes, visualize people. Now we are a 50 people team. Maybe we need to grow to 250. Maybe there's something there. Okay, moving on to the next thought elements thing. What comparison we can create? Our team before, after, our market before, after, our expenses before, after, desired outcome versus the worst outcome. Yeah, I have my face over the example so I don't see. Our market before, our market after. Yeah, that could be like a comparison before, after. And here I start to come up with the concept we currently have. Currently, we have this small thing before, and we will grow into this big thing, or we can do this in a bar chart if you think about like classic elements. Yeah, that's our market before, that's after. All right, is there advice or takeaway? Yeah, huge opportunity. There is some risk. Let's align on the plan. Those could be some things we come up here. And yeah, there's some interesting things like company stability. When risk, we lose some of it. That could be like actually an interesting second part, like further part for that type of visual where we discuss risks and talk about like how much it can cost if it goes bad or something like that. But I personally love this direction. These are great. I love it. And that's from where this was born. So size of our market today, our market after we launch Project X. Everybody in the audience is, oh my God, what is Project X? I'm excited. I want to know. Big money. Cool. Yep. Solid comparison. like now I'm going through the master checklist. You can see the blue thing there. One idea per visual. Yeah, I think looks solid. Nice comparison. Does it amplify the idea? Not sure, but feels good. The project X creates a little bit of like curiosity, so I like that. We could, of course, try to come up with more like amplification, but it feels good. It's intriguing, and I think I'm communicating what I want to communicate here. Does it flow? Yes, flows very well from left to right. Size of our market today, our market after we launch X. If this would be inverted the other way around, it would be weird. Our market after we launch X, size of our market today. That would feel odd. It breaks the flow. So it's very important. Left to right, top to bottom. Always try to make sure how people read your thing. Is it clear? Yep, we're good. The phrase, an idea, is clear. I hope you agree with me. Okay, let's go through example 3. We're on a good pace. Do we have some questions, Katie? We can for sure do them, but I can move on.
We do have some questions, but I have them at the end. So let's go through our last example and then we can get to some of the questions. Does that sound good?
Cool, perfect.
Great.
All right, now imagine you must inform your team about several risks the security team has identified. Few are critical. The team hates wasting time on insignificant stuff. So how do we try to come up with that? Here I have marked blue like all the generating thought elements and also marked important parts from our prompt. There are several risks. Few are critical, but I know team hates wasting time on insignificant stuff. So that is where my focus is. I'm really intentional about like how I craft this message because I want to strike all those things because they are important. And I don't want to overwhelm my team. So whatever, they hate me or don't listen to me. How do I come up with this stuff? I could think, okay, like what are the consequences here? Because when I think about few of those risks are critical, okay, what are the consequences? Then I think about the consequences and I know, the company will go down if we fail at them. Then discard the insignificant risks because I'm reading like my team hates that. So we can try to really focus on the important stuff, make sure they feel like I respect their attention because I have a history with them. I know how they are. So I want to make sure they feel respected, etc. The start is security team identified 10 risks. And here, one thing how I could approach this is, hey, there is only 3 risks that we need to evaluate. But remember, comparisons are super powerful. And I can use it in my advantage right now by just, if I show this slide, security team has identified 10 risks. And then the next one is, but these are not worth your time. And the audience is, okay, nice. I like that you respect my attention. We are discarding the bullshit. Awesome. Love that. And then we move on to the next one, can put us out of business. Damn. And the audience probably should feel something like, damn, this is important. We can be out of business. So I will pay attention to what you have to say here. And I think we have accomplished like our goal here with this tremendously simple visual that anybody probably can create. Yeah, quickly going through the checklist, no fluff, very clear for a presentation format where we can and that's actually one advantage. My day job is like doing this one-off visuals on socials or on books, but on presentations, you have this advantage to build up, create a story. So that's actually really cool that we can play around here and we have done here, I think, very well. And of course, you have voiceover as well, so you can explain the stuff you are doing, etc. And that's it.
Giannis, we actually have a question of that kind of progression of a visual in presentation. Prescott mentioned that they love using dimmed elements as a visual guideline. Can you talk about how you go about creating those? Do you create the entire visual and then dim out elements, or do you have another process for kind of thinking about a progression of visuals for a presentation?
Yeah, I will usually think about the final concept. So I look at the full thing and is it clear or whatever. But with presentations, I will definitely remember that I have this opportunity of building up things and changing things up. So that's definitely useful. And I love the dimming out thing because here, we could leave that not worth your time black and those little insignificant things could be fully red. And it would take a bit away our attention. But now the only thing is, okay, there's super big, bright red thing and big, bold things like can put us out of business. You are always trying to guide the attention of your audience. And you can do that with size and with color and with, brightness, color, kind of the same thing. So I think it's a great thing to use. And the key question here, key insight is, okay, how I want to guide my audience's attention. And that's basically the question. And then you figure out what to hide, how you build up. to think, but like the general concept helps as well. Am I just trying to explain too much things, then I need to break them down and slowly build up. So it makes sense. That's more or less what I would say here.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. We have some more questions, but did you want to go through the resources first and then we can dig into those questions?
Yeah, let's dig in afterwards. Then I can maybe whatever. If we need to draw, I can draw some stuff. So I think we have time. I'm just been super fast, probably too fast. But yeah, go to ozo.art/Figma. There you can download the cheat sheet. There are the example for creation in real-time video, just a little video where I created. Go watch that if you want to dig further. And in case you want to work with me, I have a course on community. That's one step how you can work with me. We can do one-on-one coaching where we do like your presentations, you share your Figma slides with me, we work together, we talk, chat, etc., and we just work on your presentations together. Or if you want to for me to do these types of workshops just a bit more in-depth and packed with like templates and other stuff, I can do that for your company as well. So just go there and reach out to me, etc. That's it. That's all I wanted to share and say. And now Q&A. Usually people have some questions. Let's dive in, Katie.
We have two questions specific to tools and one more that just came in the chat. They're curious, Giannis, how you're creating these visuals and whether you're just using Figma to do this, if you're using other tools. And some people asking where you're sketching or drawing because they love the kind of style that you're using that feels a little bit more hand-drawn. So can you talk just a little bit about your process for creation?
Yeah, sure. No problem. First, I will go back here and I will say that in that ozo.art/Figma, there is that cheat sheet. And in that cheat sheet, I have added like a little bonus where there are like 5 basic design things you should do in order to create compelling stuff. And those are just a couple of prompts that I think makes a decent visual for you without being a designer. But in general, final design, go on YouTube, Figma pen tool tutorial will take you places. But okay, question about tools. Have you created your visuals in Figma only or using different tools as well? Not for the one thing is I use for my notes. I'm in Apple ecosystem, so I use Bear Notes app on like all my devices. That's where I have notes and there is ability to draw. So I usually all those blue sketches which you saw in the presentations, those were made there. That is in my current setup. But no, all my production visuals, I think for the past 2.5 years have been in Figma. Previously, I started on Procreate on iPad because I wanted raster graphic and make stuff more fancy. Then I tried Affinity Designer, then I tried Illustrator, but there was various reasons why I quit. And at the end, after a 2-year period, what I realized, and this is very important when you think about tools, understand what are your abilities. Do you have an iPad? Can you afford an iPad? If you can't, scrap that thing. Don't think about the thing. Use Figma. Free. Like I used for 2.5 years, I use Figma. It's free and I use for all my production visuals. And the reason why I used Figma was that I realized that I'm not that much into metaphors, so I didn't use a lot my iPad for production visuals. And when it came to a desktop vector graphic tool, I think Figma is really unbeatable with these couple of basic features which I use. I really use like pen tool, my custom font, and just like the basic stuff, understand layers, understand like formatting and stuff like that. Very trivial basic stuff. I don't use any fancy things there. So that would be a bit about tools and how to think about them. Where do you sketch draw? Yeah, I answered that. I do on Bear Notes app. Yeah, any follow-up here, or this is good?
That feels great. And again, go check out the link that we'll be sharing again. And you've seen several times on slides, a lot of resources that Yana shares about how he does this and other resources you can use again. But we can go to the next slide. And well, actually, Anastasia has a really good question to that of whether you have a visual board for all the projects you created. I think we just mentioned this, but Giannis, where should folks go to see, or where are you capturing your own ideas for your own reference later?
In general, I organize them on Figma. Like I usually create content more or less daily. So every month I create a new Figma file where I just have that content for that month and I build it up and then I open up the next month. And whenever something goes like super viral or I feel, oh, this did really well, I love it, or there was like a lot of comments, draw a lot of engagement, so I know this is a good concept, I have another file which is called the file of fame, where I basically put my all top performing content and it's like an inspiration board that I have. But for public, that like File of Fame is actually part of my course and community, so you can get access to that there. But all those visuals are on like Instagram, my Twitter/X, all the LinkedIn, social media, and also you can just check it out there. And again, if you go to that link, ozo.art/Figma or ozo.art, whatever, there's like links on my website to all my socials, so you can have fun and check them out there.
Fantastic. The next question is from an anonymous attendee asking about how you might approach this for more dense or technical content. Can you talk a little bit about how you might break this down for something that seems a little bit more complex when you're starting out?
Yeah, this is a good question. And context matters a lot. Are you creating like a snappy content for socials to go viral and get engagement and hook people? That is where my like expertise is, and I think what was this presentation mostly about and what my like social content in is, etc. I don't create like very fancy elaborate infographics or anything like that. Maybe sometimes, and that's something I might dive in, but here it's very important that I communicate that to people that trust me. That content will not do well on socials or whatever. But if you have a trusted whatever people when you're explaining to teams or whatever, they might look into it. But again, I would still follow the same approach in terms that I create presentation and I have this complex concept and I illustrate this super complex concept, in whatever tool, yeah. But then I try to understand, okay, how I want my audience to engage in this concept. And then I break it down, let's start with this. Let's establish the problem. Then let's explain this concept. Let's explain what happened here. It's not like through visuals, you can just suddenly with a couple of seconds, like illustrate tremendously complex things. No, you can't, but you can build up to them. And of course, still you can, with visuals, you can explain big concepts or deep ideas with one pitchy visual. That's, of course, it's not easy to come up with, and sometimes you strike with that and sometimes not. But yeah, it's a rant on this. I don't know if it's a good answer or not, but yeah, in general, I would always have your complex concepts, but remember, only people who really trust you will engage in them. And why not build up to them? You can hook them and then explain a bit more and then explain a bit more, etc. But the process, I think, in general, don't change that much. But you always keep in mind who is in your audience. Super technical people who trust me, or like more like I'm trying to hook attention, etc.
Awesome. We have a few questions that I'm just pulling in now from the chat that are related to styles. So we have this one from Marco, is color palettes and then one around fonts and colors. So I'm wondering if you can speak to both of these and thinking about just like, how do you think about creating your style? And when you're working with a brand or within a company, how would you think about applying company styles and while still making it your own? So any thoughts you have here about colors, fonts, style in general?
Yeah, I think I like that you mentioned psychology here. Of course, like I don't go into like super crazy depth and analyze every single color, but of course, like usually red bad, green good, green means go, red means stop, basic things, yellow somewhere in between. Those are like very common sense type of things that I try to follow, and I think it's important and they work. Mark checklists as green checkboxes and like failures as red X's or something like that. About, for example, if somebody hires me from a company and they have a very specific style, I will just follow that style, but all the principles still apply. The only thing I will probably bring up is, hey, I see you have like in your style, you have a lot of like texture or whatever, and this makes things clutter. So that is taking away a bit the audience's ability to consume this particular idea. Just know that it will not be as snappy as it could be, with white or black or whatever type of color background. That would be one example how I approach this. You can always like, fit it a bit better or not. Yeah, not word salads. Sorry. But yeah, that would be how I would think about that. And in terms for your own style, again, it boils down to the tool. Are you using raster graphic? Maybe you draw on iPad or whatever, and you have absolutely different type of style, or you just draw on pen and paper with black marker and you snap pictures and you put in your presentations or on socials or whatever. So there's gazillion ways how you can go about this. For example, for my particular style, I think it looks professional enough that people actually reach out to me and hire me to do visuals for books, etc., etc. But there's a lot of interesting things how I build up to that style. For example, I personally struggle quite a lot with perfectionism. And when you look at my style, I have these little like lines are a bit not straight, and sometimes the fillings of structures go outside those lines, so it looks imperfect. And that is very intentional because this imperfect style silence down my perfectionism. That Yanis, you got this, but if everything would be super perfect and precise, I would struggle a lot more with the perfectionism. But as I embrace this imperfect style, which still looks very decent, is just how I think about it. So everything has a reason. That's what I guess I'm trying to say here. Look at your tools, look what you want, create an inspiration board, and etc. But of course, too messy styles, too colorish styles, too just all over the place, they will damage the ability to consume your idea this fast. You need to just not go all over the place. There's a trade-off. Maybe it's super beautiful, but the trade-off is it will not be consumed as fast. Yeah. Okay.
An anonymous attendee asked on the next slide, do you have advice in regards to speed in terms of presentation visuals? And thinking about the audience's consumption of that and whether it's meant to be consumed fairly quickly or whether someone can sit with it and think it can unfold over time.
Okay.
Any thoughts about how the audience approaches the visual?
No, in general, I will always aim to deliver the idea ASAP. And I think if the idea itself, if the idea is good, if the idea have depth, it doesn't matter how fast you communicate that idea. They will sit with it. I have some fancy visuals and some people have reached out to me like, damn, I'm just like thinking about this and thanks for this and whatever. So the speed of delivery, I don't think affects that much like the depth or the leisurity of it. But my focus in general definitely is on being fast, being precise, being clear, speed of delivery, clarity. Those are very important values for me. And I'm sure there's a market for more leisurely type of artsy vibe where maybe they sacrifice the clarity. I know there's a lot of interesting Instagram accounts which have this type of vibe where they sometimes lose a bit on clarity, but it's playful, it's nice, it's interesting, and a lot of people love it, and it's great. But particularly for my style, I focus on like clarity and speed of delivery. That's very important. But yeah, okay.
That's fantastic. Let's end with one more question. No, we can go forward one. The question is, how important is storytelling over visual elements in a presentation? So can you just talk a little bit about how you think about visual elements fitting into the larger story on the slide here?
How important is storytelling over visual elements in a presentation? I think it's tremendously important. It's an absolutely, I think, different skill set in a sense. I think it's almost like uncomparable. I think they both are important. I would say like storytelling is like if you're absolutely ridiculously bad at talking and speaking, etc. I'm maybe not the worst, definitely not the best. Visuals can make that better, but it will not fully save you. Storytelling is just an important skill set that you must have. You can't just, you can, particularly in presentations where you need to speak, you need to talk. Storytelling, I think, is important, the ability to communicate ideas. If you are like me, just posting stuff on Instagram, etc., and you can get away with a fancy, snappy visual, that's fine. You don't need any storytelling. You just, good visuals are good to go. So the context matters here, but for presentation, speaking, storytelling matters a lot, and I think it's tremendously important, but it's just a different skill set. Same as like good copywriting, visual, storytelling, all different skill sets, super important. Learn them all and be unstoppable.
As a presenter, you absolutely. That's a great note to end on. And next slide, we have an overview of that process again, along with the link out. So lastly, Yanis, if folks want to follow along, if they want to get in touch with you, where's the best place for them to head?
I just go to the link and click some other buttons on my website and you will find everything. So yeah, and hit me up. There's an email. If you have some particular questions or whatever, I answer to every email I get. Sometimes it takes a week or so, but usually I answer everybody. So hit me up and check out my stuff if you like it. That's it.
Thank you so much, Yanis, for being here. Thank you all for engaging us and bringing these amazing questions. We hope this was useful in helping you think about how to bring visuals to become a better presenter. Have a great day.
Had fun. Take care, everybody. Bye.